Welcome to Mental Attire, the Meaning Series. Today's episode Is Eccentricity a Form of Vanity? I am Amy.
I'm Cleopatra.
And I'm Caitlin.
So, the quote that inspired today's video and our talking point is from this book that was originally published in 1860. It is The Lady's Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness. There's also a gentleman's version. But the quote is, avoid eccentricity either in dress, conversation, or manner. It is a form of vanity as it will attract attention and is therefore in bad taste. So it's not talking about just how we're dressing ourselves physically. It's talking about how we're talking. It's talking about our mannerisms. And so I think we wanted to talk a little bit about that of each one and how they all kind of even come together. And they're part of your mental attire, which is the whole point of this series. And so they all make up your mental attire. And so, yeah.
Well, I think, eccentricity, if we look at, people may say the uniqueness of each of us, being able to express themselves. Um, but as Cleopatra mentioned, it's mental attire we're talking about, and what we believe, what we think, all affects how we behave, how we dress. It talks about how we converse, our manners, and a lot of that, well, no, all of it will be portrayed through us and through how we dress, through how we behave. And so, we can be brave and courageous and confident and bold in everything, and it's not that any of us have to dress in the exact same clothes or what have you, but how we are dressing does affect our mannerisms, does affect how we write, how we speak, how we, any of it, you know. And what we go back to a lot is, who are we dressing for? And so is our eccentricity for God? Is it for truth? Is it to help others? It's not that we're supposed to dress for others, but is that going to help, you know, help others too? And we are being an influence. We're being an example. Are we paying attention to that and how God says to? Are we connected with God?
And I think, we like loud dress, extreme opinions, extreme behaviors. They often come from a deep insecurity. Sometimes it's not even confidence, sometimes. But vanity today doesn't always look like pride, but it looks like constant visibility, and it's done to be seen. It's done to be draining. And so I think we need to sometimes restraint is a good thing. Sometimes it's being intentional and having those boundaries for yourself. It communicates instead maturity. It communicates wisdom. It shows self-control. It doesn't show weakness. So I think when it comes to that, we shouldn't be seeking attention in a wrong way, but we should be using wisdom and being intentional and being mature with our choices and what we put on our mind and also our outer clothing.
Mhm. And the history of the word eccentric, it comes from the Greek is ekentros, and it's talking about off center. It means you're off center. Something is off center, and obviously it didn't relate to people when it was originally, back in medieval Latin, but it means that something is off. You're not quite like it says off center, and so I think that when you think of it that way, you're purposely trying to stand out in a way that's seeking attention. Because, like we've talked about before in other episodes, when you're dressing yourself well, both mentally and physically, you might attract attention and others might notice you. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. But when you're dressing for attention to impact you and those around you in a negative way, then that leads to eccentricity and vanity and that kind of thing. And so I think, the whole idea of modesty in how you dress and how you act has gained such a negative connotation. And I think that there's a lot of things that have gained a negative connotation. Um, but I think when you go back to the root of what it means to clothe yourself with humility and honor and kindness. And that means first your mental state should be clothed with those things, and then your physical will be a representation of that. And so when you're dressing eccentrically, I feel like it shows that your mental state is in somewhat of a dis state of disorder almost. You don't have clarity, and so you're constantly seeking um, almost external validation from it by seeking that
Mhm.
attention. And so I think when you start to center yourself, center your thoughts, and then it reflects in how you dress, it's naturally going to be more modest and humble. And I don't mean those in negative ways. I just mean that it's going to kind of be more grounded, I guess. And so that's just something I've noticed with myself too, is when I start to center my thoughts and ground my thoughts, it reflects in my dress, it reflects in how I'm talking to other people. Because that's another thing is when you're having conversations, and we were talking about yesterday how difficult it is to have conversations with people, even because their mind is so scattered and they're thinking about 20 other things versus the conversation that you're having in front of you. And so when you apply that uh, groundedness to your dress, your mannerisms, and your conversation, I think it makes a huge difference.
And I think if we look at vanity, I was looking up because I love synonyms and antonyms. Vanity with conceit, egotism, pride, arrogance. When we're looking at versus truth, modesty, and as I mentioned, being bold and confident and all of that. And you mentioned how eccentricity, being off-centered, we all can be off-centered. And as you mentioned, we can, when we are, what are the things that we can do, which you started mentioning. One is quiet time. On here, we have a separate post that talks about what you can do for quiet time, something feel very firm about and very strong. It is one of the best, highest, most beneficial ways to actually connect with God, to connect with your spirit, to connect with your body and your mind. And whatever that voice is, lots of different people call it lots of different names. It's ego, pride, whatever, that voice that is kind of on the negative. It's actually our brain, part of our brain that's just trying to protect us. It's not really trying to hurt us, but it also can set off triggers in us. And since so much of us, 95% of us, are programmed unconsciously, subconsciously, we have to spend it's wise to spend that time in quiet time to reflect, to honest. We talk about honest reflections a lot in all of our videos. Stepping back and honestly reflecting and saying, okay, God and Spirit, what am I unconsciously, subconsciously not understanding? And what am I, you said external validation. It's true. Two things that humans want to be is appreciated and noticed. Attention. And I can't remember this one quote. Attention. I might try to find it when somebody else is talking. It's a really good one. But being noticed and appreciated and receiving attention. And like you mentioned, being present with whoever we are talking with.
Well, and like you said, people like to seek or they want that attention. And if they're not getting it, well, if they're not getting that, they're going to be
Mhm.
louder. And sometimes choosing to make a statement and being loud. But character speaks louder. Quiet is very powerful, and I think we need to choose that more often, to be quiet, to sit with our thoughts, to sit with God, and to, understand what is truth, because there are so many different distractions and there's so many different things out in the world that will tell you a million different things and tell you that there are a million different ways when God is right there and he wants to guide
Mhm.
you and to show you how to walk in truth. And so, you don't have to announce yourself to be respected. The most grounded people, they don't chase the room, but they influence it. And so, a peaceful presence in my opinion means like a loud performance. If you have a peaceful presence, you know people are going to notice that. They're going to notice that influence in you choosing to be different. I think that's what we need to choose, is to sit and to be still and to realize how much that affects our character and how people are going to notice that and how you're going to influence others.
I was watching a video yesterday and it was talking about being articulate when you're speaking and having conversations and how it's okay to pause and to consider what you're going to say next. And it might mean there's like a gap of silence or something like that, but it gives you an actual genuine response to whether it's a question or just a response to the your turn in the conversation. And I think that as far as it goes to wanting the attention, like you guys were talking about, of everyone wants attention, um, I don't think wanting attention has to be a bad thing. I think naturally we should all want attention, but you have to evaluate what ways you're seeking it, what ways you're getting it, and if those are godly, healthy ways, or if they're negative, um, rooted in vanity and eccentricity and that kind of thing. And so when you evaluate how you're getting the attention, I think it's just a good idea to ask yourself, is this positive for me? Is this moving my life in a positive direction? Is it moving me forward in life? Or is it keeping me stuck or moving me backwards? Because it can do all those things. And so when you think about that, I would say to remember that it's not a bad thing to want positive, godly, healthy attention, because we're humans. We're not meant to be in seclusion. We're supposed to have interaction with others and have genuine relationships, but they should be healthy and not rooted in eccentricity and I guess you would say vanity.
So the quote is, attention is the purest and rarest form of generosity. Simon Weil. So attention is basically the purest and the best form we could be to be generous. And in my opinion, it means present, being present. We get the mind racing, we get the monkeys jumping around in our mind and everything. We got all this, if we're having a hard time being present. And sometimes that's even when we're by ourselves. The monkeys are jumping around, the mind's racing. Actually, a lot of the time it can be then too. Or when you wake up in the morning or when you go to bed, we have lots of different videos about habits and about morning routine, night routine, and things that you can even do throughout the day to be able to help get better control of the mind, to discipline your mind, and then you're also disciplining your body. And the reason we have mental attire is we talk about the mind and then how that affects our body, our manners, our conversations, our dress, everything. So, what is one takeaway that each of you would give today?
Um, for me, I'll give Cleo a minute to think. Um, but for me, like one of my biggest things is take the time for yourself to quiet yourself, and to connect with God. Because I think that's where it starts. That's where everything flows out of, is like your mental state. And so you need to be in that right state. Take some time, like we've said, go get that quiet time sheet that we offer you guys, print it out, and just evaluate yourself and be honest with you and God. Because quiet is powerful and that affects your home, and it affects how you act outside of your home and in your business and your work, whatever. And that will affect everything else. So I guess that would be my takeaway.
I think to play off of what Caitlin said, realize that taking that time doesn't have to be selfish because, again, all of these things, they've come to have such negative connotations, and it's like, where do I even start? Because this is bad, this is bad. So now you're just combining bad things, and it's you have to realize that you have to go back to the basics of it and what it's meant to be. And so when you take that time for the quiet time, then also apply it. Don't just sit with it and think of it, but apply it. And whether that's taking one little step at a time, or it might feel like a bigger step, it doesn't matter how big the step is compared to someone else's. That's don't get into the game of comparison, but just be willing to take that step. So maybe it's you would like to, I'm trying to think of how to word this. Maybe you want to put in just a little bit more effort into your dress. So maybe that means laying out your clothes the night before, or thinking about it the night before, or taking 5 minutes away from scrolling on your phone to put more intention into that. So maybe it's about taking a bad habit and turning it into a positive one too. And so I would just encourage you to, once you've done the quiet time, and you can do that over and over and over again, but be willing to take the action steps that are either revealed to you or you already know you need to take. Don't just stay stagnant.
Yes, and that's pretty much everything I would recommend. And just focus on the next right thing. Like she's mentioned, Klepach mentioned, one tiny step. All the tiny steps lead to the giant leaps. And sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't even realize it happens. But also know that you may have to be, we talk about this, the first kernel popped. And whether that's in your family, whether that's in the groups you hang out with, whether that's where you work, whatever in your area of your life, understand that somebody has to be that first kernel popped. And you have to be strong and bold and brave and courageous. And we are not talking about you have to dress just like everybody else, but it is a manner of, who are you representing? Who are you dressing for? Who are your behaviors representing? If God or Jesus or anybody else was sitting here, Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel or Michael, and you may not believe in any of those, but I would invite you to highly consider it. There is a creator and almighty intelligence that is way more powerful, and we wouldn't be here without. So the only other thing my takeaway would be is open up or search Proverbs. And, maybe start by reading the Proverbs on top of quiet time. Read the Proverbs for the day. Like today's the 18th, read the Proverbs 18, and do the corresponding days. And even if it doesn't make sense in the beginning, that's okay. But it's a great place to start if you've never been in the Bible. But just know there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of do's and don'ts in there. And you can really grasp onto that. So for today, we appreciate you. We are thankful for you. No one nor family shall do life alone. So please do reach out and connect with us. We'd love to hear from you, and take care.